Hey, you guys. Back once again with another Tomes of Terror book review. So, not too long ago, I feel like it was probably like a few months ago, I actually gave a quite glowing review to the excellent 2020 novella, which was called The Rotting Within by Matt Kurtz. And if you haven't read that, like seriously, you should read it. I think it's still on Kindle Unlimited if you have that. And actually, much to my pleasant surprise, Matt Kurtz himself contacted me through email and offered me a copy of his latest book, which is also a novella, and he called it like a creature feature type of thing, and it's called Shockwaves, and it was actually just published by Umbra Press, like just this year. So, I mean, because I said in my Rotting Within review that I really was looking forward to reading more of this guy's stuff, obviously he offered it to me, so I was like, oh, well, I was all too happy to accept it, so he sent me like an ebook version of it. And I noticed when I was reading it that my review of his previous book, The Rotting Within, is actually quoted at the beginning of this new one, like with a bunch of other ones. And that actually kind of made me, I was like, wow, I feel like a famous person. Like whose opinions about books like people care about. I thought that was kind of neat. So it's like, he didn't tell me that like going in. So I thought it was like really funny. It's like, hey, I said that. So I thought that was kind of cool. So Shockwaves. This actually, the ebook version is only about 166 pages. I read it probably in a couple of hours because I read like fairly fast. And because it's so short, it absolutely does not fuck around. I mean, it pretty much dives right into the horror like in the first few minutes and really doesn't let up until the very, very end. So just like I mentioned when I was talking about The Rotting Within, this novella is really, really tight, really relentless. There's like no bullshit, there's no fluff, there's no anything like that. The characters are introduced with just enough like very economical detail to get you emotionally invested in them. All the better for you to be like really devastated when they usually get horribly killed. Not always, but you never know when it's going to happen. So I'm just saying, like, you get really attached to people and then you're like, oh shit, you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. So I'm going to say like Matt Kurtz in that way he's really kind of like a fearless writer because he doesn't really seem to shy away from bumping off just beloved characters, cute babies, shit like that. He just like does not give one single fuck, and I kind of love that. So because you can never be entirely sure, like since he does that, you can never be entirely sure, like even if the main protagonists are even safe. So the stakes like seem like a lot higher. So Shockwaves is set in 1988. And it's told from the first-person perspective of a 17-year-old kid who you find out eventually his name is Danny. And he works his summers at this place in Texas called the Lone Star Land Amusement Park. So, interestingly, in his endnotes, Matt Kurtz said that this story is somewhat autobiographical. I mean, obviously, like, if you've read it, like, it can't be really autobiographical because of all the crazy shit that happens in it. But in the sense that he actually was a ride foreman at an amusement park, like when he was a teenager. So since he had such familiarity with like the procedures and all of the stuff surrounding that job, it really does give the book like this real immersive quality and, a good dose of realism because, the writer actually knew what he was talking about and knew like what the procedures were for working in that, context. So we get introduced to Danny and a couple of his other co-workers, like around the park, including a girl named Ciarra, who is this kind of like go-getter, like gymnast, like she does gymnastics on the side, and she kind of factors a lot larger into the story later on. But this particular summer, Danny's main preoccupation is with his relationship with his girlfriend of 2 years, whose name is Stacy. Now, she also works at the park. So prior to the events of the novella, like as a matter of fact, like right before the events start, like right before the beginning, Danny and Stacy had something of an argument or disagreement, I guess, or something like that, like over their break. And now that Danny is back at work, like manning his station, he's feeling pretty bad about some stuff that he said. And so he's kind of like just counting the hours until his shift ends so he can go like apologize to her and like make everything right. Now, we don't actually find out until later what the fight was about, but all I'm going to say about that is that it actually like raises the stakes of the story like significantly, like when you find out what it is later on. So Danny is acting as a ride foreman on a roller coaster, which is called Shockwaves. along with his, like, another coworker who's the assistant foreman, whose name is Greg. Now, the guys are hoping that the park is going to close earlier than usual because there's this huge thunderstorm coming in with, like, all this lightning and stuff. And obviously, when you have lightning and stuff, you can't have these rides, like, up in the air because people will get struck by lightning. So the managers will usually close the park down. So they're kind of waiting for that call to come, but it hasn't come yet. So, for now, they just have to, like, keep doing what they're doing because, there are still a few straggling park guests and they're climbing onto the coaster, getting ready to ride it. And Danny has to, make sure that they're safe. Now, on this particular ride, because a few guests throughout the course of the day had been complaining about one of the turns, like on the roller coaster, being way bumpier or like feeling way sketchier than usual, Danny decides that he's going to get on the roller coaster himself, like on this ride, like with the guests, to kind of check it out. Because he's like, well, I know I'm supposed to call the park mechanic, who's this surly big dude, like named Billy, but he's like, I don't really like having to talk to that dude, so I'm just going to check it out myself. And then if I think something's wrong, then I'll call him, like, as a last resort. However, so he gets on there with the guests and everything like that. And no sooner, though, has the roller coaster just crested that first hill than literally, like, all hell begins to break loose. So it so happens that right next to the amusement park is this big construction site. Now, Danny doesn't actually have any idea what the fuck they're building over there. I don't think you ever do find out. But crews are just hard at work, like, day and night. He's like, holy crap, whatever that is, they're, like, putting it up, like, really fast. So while Danny and a handful of other people are on the roller coaster, this huge explosion, like, just rocks the construction site next door, and it ends up opening up this, like, that starts out as, like, a 10-foot wide rift, like, in the earth, and kind of knocks out all the power to the park, and also kind of knocks the roller coaster, like, slightly off the tracks, because it kind of, the shockwave and everything like that. So, see, shockwave, it's a double meaning. So obviously everybody in the park now is like plunged into darkness and they're stuck on this roller coaster like way the fuck up in the air. So Danny, because he's the park employee, feels like he has to try and like reassure everybody that, somebody will come along soon and like help us off the ride. And for a few minutes, it does actually seem like this is what's going to happen because there are protocols in place to deal with this sort of event, like power outages and things like that. So it does seem like everything's kind of going according to plan, at least at first. But then everybody kind of glances over toward the construction site and begins to notice, to their alarm, that there are things kind of coming out of this big, huge crack in the earth. Some of these things are big bat-like things, like with wings on them. Some of them are like big, like segmented insect centipede type things, kind of with compound eyes and stuff. Some of them have like tentacles and shit like that. So essentially like monsters is what I'm saying. Like all these monsters are like coming out of this crack in the earth. And all of them, they kind of look like monsters, like insects or spiders and things like that, like on, our planet, but are way larger than they have any right to be, and also seem to have an appetite for flesh. So there's that. So the rest of the story, basically, is just this kind of real nail-biting journey through parts of this amusement park, because Danny and this little ragtag gang of survivors, they're trying to get down from the roller coaster, get to the next ride over, which is like called Rip Roaring Rapids or something like that, to rescue Danny's girlfriend Stacy, because that's where she was working and he actually doesn't know if she's alive or not because he can't see her. After that, they're kind of hoping to get the fuck out of the park and into the surrounding neighborhoods to, because two of the people that are with them, like in the gang that were guests at the park, whose names are Juan and Lydia, they actually left their little boy like with the grandmother, and she lives just like a few blocks away from the park. So they're hoping to like kind of get to the end of the park and like climb over the wall and like get over there and make sure that they're okay. So all along the way, like all along this journey that they're taking, just monsters of all descriptions are just swooping in, just running at them, like on land, like flying in from the air, like coming out of the water, like some of the rides that are like water and stuff like that. And, are just kind of like trying to pick them off one by one, tear them in half or whatever. So some of the deaths here, gonna say, are pretty gnarly. So, you know, if you're kind of like a gorehound or whatever, you should be, I feel like you would be more than satisfied, like with the level of carnage. And as I also mentioned in my previous review that I did of his other book, The Rotting Within, this is actually kind of like the kind of story that constitutes real horror, like what I would consider real horror, because it just describes like completely nice, blameless people just getting torn to pieces for no reason, really. Like, they didn't deserve it or anything like that. It's just they happened to be on a roller coaster at an amusement park when this crack in the earth opened and all these hungry monsters came out and wanted to eat them, and, you know, it sucks to be them, pretty much. So, much like the roller coaster that gives the book its name, Shockwaves, this is actually much like a roller coaster ride itself. It's very, very thrilling. It's very fast-paced, has a bunch of ups and downs, and it has, much like his last book did, a real emotional heart at its core. And I think that largely that's because you're seeing everything through the point of view of Danny, who's just this real affable, likable character. And he's also kind of, he's an everyman, but he's also very like humbly heroic, I guess, like, because he has to like step up. And, you know, he's trying to get to his girlfriend, and there's just no damn way that he is going to leave the park without her. So it's, you know, so it's really kind of like a good, he's just a really, really good character because he's just a kid. I mean, he's only 17, but he really has to like kind of drop his nuts and get in there and like help everybody out. And he's just like a really, really good character. So honestly, I kind of think that Matt Kurtz is quickly becoming one of my favorite horror writers. I mean, I've only read 2 of his things like so far, but I mean, both of the things have been outstanding. His stuff is just really fun. It's really gory. It's really engaging. Like, it has like a real good heart to it. You get real emotionally invested in the characters. And I mean, even though he's not like reinventing the wheel, he's not doing anything like really, you know, innovative or anything in that way, you know what I mean? But he's just taking everything that makes geeks like me like really, really love horror, and he's just going balls to the wall with it. And he's just really concerned about you just having like a really nasty good time, you know what I mean, with this book. And not, it doesn't have to be super deep or anything like that. It's just fucking great. And all his stuff is like real cinematic as well. So, and I think I said in my Rotting Within review that I thought it would make a great movie. Same thing here. I think this would make like a fantastic monster movie, and it would be so fun like seeing all the monster designs, because all the monsters like look kind of different, you know what I mean? So I think that would be really, and the gore would be off the chain, because like I said, monsters, they're eating people, so they're just kind of like tearing people in half and like ripping limbs and heads and shit like that off. So it would be a lot of fun, I feel like, if they made this into a movie. I was gonna say too that he also has a real, I mean, his writing is really, really good. I mean, he has really good, like I said, it's very economical. It's not real adorned or anything like that, but he's very good at like picking like the exact right words, like to get across, you know, what he wants to get across, and like, so you can picture it in your head. He's also really good at doing real brief but very targeted characterization, that gets you on board with the characters like pretty much immediately. And like I said, he kind of does that sometimes, kind of in order to crush your spirit when something terrible happens to this person, because man, some terrible shit happens to like some nice people in this. So you know what I mean. I'm just saying. But yeah, so if you haven't read any of Matt Kurtz's stuff, I would definitely recommend it. This is his newest one. Like I said, it just came out this year, and this is some good shit, man. If you're just really into balls to the wall, gory, just fun horror that's not, it's not super complicated or anything like that. It's just a very simple siege type story. It's just, you know, a group of survivors trying to get through this amusement park without getting eaten by monsters. Essentially, that's the entire story, but it's just executed so well, and I really, really had a great time with it. So like I said, I'm very excited to read more of Matt Kurtz's stuff, because he's written a couple more novels and some short story collections as well, which actually I kind of want to dig into because I really like short stories. But yeah, if you haven't read it, like seriously, read some of his stuff. I believe this one is also on Kindle Unlimited. If you have a subscription to that, like, you can read the ebook for free. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it if you're into that kind of thing. So that will do it for this Tomes of Terror, and I'll see you again on the next one. Bye.